6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane, by to visit Glen Rock. Need crypto, told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
Okay, this is the first time this has ever happened in podcast history, for us at least. We have a recurring guest. This is Alex G. So if you are from our side of Twitter, not only is she a posting legend, but she is you're getting around to all these media places now. Like I don't want to say that we launched your career. I don't want to say that. But you know,
but you did clearly.
I needed you to say it. Thank
now
you.
We're getting a bump from you now. Like, well,
yes,
you know what I mean. So
no, literally nobody listened. Nobody listened before you came on either. So that was that was good. So I will say to all the listeners, if you came in late, because this was I'm checking the timeline, 4 months since we've talked to you, and yeah, it's been a while. So if you, I would actually pause this episode and go back and listen to the first one, Virtual Learning with Alex G, because it is good. It is good because that was actually when what we're going to talk about today was kind of taboo to talk about, right? It's now it's a little more normalized. But first off, how have you been doing?
I've been all right. How have you guys been?
Oh, man, we're good. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I'm good. What about you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's just crazy how, I don't know. I feel a lot of what we're talking about is getting vindicated, but also things are crazier than ever before. It's kind of a weird mix of stuff going on.
Yeah, it's like less alone. I feel less alone, but somehow not better.
No, it's not any better. I thought it would feel better, but being right isn't always good. Being right's overrated, actually. Like, I wanted to be wrong about all the stuff we were going to talk about, especially the lockdown, what we want to start with right now. So you had another a piece, and this came out in December with the Bellows, and I'll go ahead and put it on the screen for people to see. But this was about the COVID class war, right? So basically, you know, I think we're all in agreement, all three of us here, and probably a lot of our listeners, maybe not all of them, that it was kind of just an upward transfer of wealth, right? Is kind of why, maybe not why we originally locked down, but why it lasted so long, and you know. In California, it's kind of still going on. There's remnants of it. It's kind of they're kind of taking off certain layers at a time. But Alex, when you were writing this, just first off, go over kind of what you were talking about in the article, and also maybe some of the pushback you might have gotten from it.
Yeah. So the article, like you said, is called "The Great COVID Class War," and a major argument in the article is that a lot of what's been presented as a public health policy really could be characterized more as an economic agenda, because the outcomes for public health have been pretty devastating in a lot of metrics. First, because of situations that happened with COVID itself, in terms of the death rates, like nursing home deaths were 40% of the deaths. We saw hospitals closing, hospitals lost billions of dollars, I think maybe $300 billion in the US. Hospital staff was cut. So all the sort of health measures that you would think would go into fighting a virus or any health situation, we saw some of the opposite happen. And then we also have a major public health crisis coming with mental health, especially for kids, loneliness for elderly people. And so there's an element with COVID that we've seen, there's a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of creating a health crisis through lockdown policies instead of necessarily solving those problems. And in the news recently with Cuomo, it's become very clear that some of the models that they used to justify sending older people in nursing homes from hospitals back to nursing homes actually produced a lot of death within the nursing homes. So the measures haven't been effective, and I think there's more and more mainstream coverage of the way in which some of these measures haven't been effective, especially comparing places like California, where we're still in lockdown, to Florida, where they have schools open, they don't have a mask mandate, businesses are open, stuff like that. And that's kind of my argument on what has happened. And then the question is why it's happened. And looking at the information, it's very clear, obviously, that a lot of people have made a lot of money from this, even though when lockdown started, some of the argument on the left was that it was actually bad for business, and this was like something that was going to empower workers and stuff. But in reality, in the same time period that American workers lost $1 trillion, US billionaires gained $1 trillion and of course, we see Amazon, Walmart, Target making record profits, while over 100,000 small businesses have closed. And worldwide, there's definitely a lot of negative impact on the global poor. There's going to be 150 million people plunged into extreme poverty, and hundreds of millions of people experiencing famine because of supply chains getting cut off, and also lack of access to healthcare, all kinds of negative consequences in places that we don't necessarily see or think about when we think about lockdown. It's not just a question of like, are bars open here? There's sort of globally things happening in the economy. So yeah, I think a lot of this has basically, like you said, been a wealth transfer that hasn't really improved necessarily outcomes, even for COVID.
No, not at all. And yeah, like him and I talk about this all the time, and you and I talk about it from time to time too. Like, if it should have been like, so okay, back to March, right? And California, of course, had like the most harsh reaction to it, like lockdown, everything, all that, and New York as well. Back then, it was supposed to be 2 weeks, right, to slow the spread, 2 weeks to let the hospitals get ready. Like, it's just that's never let anyone tell you different. That's why we locked down.
Yeah.
And in theory, it should have just been peeled back slowly. Like, okay, we can do this now, right? We can move this event outside now. We can do that, just like you had said I was listening to our last episode with you, where you had said, why can't, in California especially, why can't we do some schooling outside if we're scared of indoor transmission? But none of that happened, right? Like, the minute there was any kind of data, right, which in California they weren't really honest with the data. And this is San Francisco Chronicle was saying this, like, yeah, actually it'd be bad if you knew the data. That was the thing. So yeah, I don't know. None of this was done in good faith, and none of it was done for public health, and I'll die on that hill.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially, I think I wonder with what's been coming out with Cuomo and stuff, if there's even more things like that will come out around mismanagement.
Sure.
I don't know, what do you think about that?
Strategically, I think it'll strategically come out. I think I'm still trying to figure out what the Cuomo thing means. You know, like, why is that a thing right now? And we knew he was basically a mass murderer. Why is it now? Why are they're like, is Cuomo just not useful anymore?
Yeah, I think they focus grouped it, and he didn't. He didn't take off as some future presidential candidate like they thought he would.
Yes.
And they're like, all right, this guy will get sacrificed.
We got to deal with Biden because of you dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I can see that.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I'm just shocked at how, once it's all coming to light, everything, not just with the Cuomo thing, but just how quickly these bullshit models came out, and how quickly they switched to it not just being like a anti-Trump thing or like a reactionary thing, but it just became like a crazy power grab. How quickly people jumped on this and capitalized on this, to use that turn of phrase, is like even stunning to me. Like they were ready to go. It is conspiratorial that they were just so ready to go with this and just had every path planned out. They had all the bureaucratic quote unquote scientists ready to go. They had the Johnny Anitas thing, you know, how they totally slaughtered him for being 100% correct and accurate in March for the infection fatality rate.
And well,
Which is
I'm from unfamiliar. Who's John Ioannidis?
he's one of the most rigorous and famous and cited scientists, specifically epidemiologists in the world at Stanford. And early on, he
Oh,
was
yeah.
and he was like, we probably shouldn't lock down the way we're doing. And actually, the IFR is probably this. And everyone's like, are you kidding me? It's at least 10 times higher. And just now that I look back on it and see all the smears they had for him ready to go, like loaded in the gun, I'm like, oh, this is for sure like a planned thing. That he's one of the most legendary scientists of all time, and like particularly legendary for his accuracy and his calling out bullshit science,
Yeah.
So it's like, so it's just all so much clearer to me now, even more than I thought before. And yeah, so I don't know, yeah, they got it all figured out. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. The thing I found interesting about it too was like in our last episode together, we were all at a crossroad as kind of, okay, what was the election going to mean for the lockdowns? And I'm not gonna lie, I think I was right. I think that the Biden thing, like, and not that there's still stuff that's under lockdown and stuff, but it immediately changed to like, oh, Amazon just reached out to start rolling out the vaccine. Wow, he didn't feel comfortable working with Trump. And it's like, okay, disregard him and I's take on vaccines and COVID vaccine. Let's say that it's the perfect, miracle drug. The president that you didn't like was the reason you withheld all that stuff. Was like, nah, everybody should die until Trump's gone. Like it was so politicized. And now you're seeing, I still thought this was like within Biden's first 100 days, this was kind of a way to give him like, not an easy win, but a way to build America back better. Right. Isn't that they're saying? So what do you think about that, Alex? Is it really kind of, I mean, we knew it was politicized, but did it shock you at how politicized and how fast we're seeing things kind of go back, I guess?
I guess maybe not shocking, but sometimes it's still kind of hard to figure out what's going on or what the agenda is, because it feels like every day there's like a story that's like, oh, it's almost over, and then the same day a story that's like, no, it's never gonna end.
Should you wear 12 masks? Scientists.
Yeah, actually 12 masks, forever
Oh
vaccines.
3 shots. Yeah.
Each mask has a woke saying on it, and it's like a Russian nesting doll. As you take one off and add one, it's like a new saying: drink water, don't be racist. And agreed.
So I think it's very possible that there's different competing factions that have different ideas about what should be done and how long this should go on for. So, and you also have certain people whose careers are on the line, right?
Yeah.
Or it's very possible that there's certain Democrats who want to sort of have it be under Biden's reign that this ends.
Yeah.
Whereas other powerful interests that have made a lot of money and don't necessarily see it that way. But there's also a lot of pushback. And then I think a lot of people are seeing a lot of things as absurd, and the propaganda is not working as well as it used to. Because they're not, there's only so long that like the fear can be maintained. And I think also as more people express skepticism, it makes it more okay for other people to feel like they can be skeptical. And I think there's a lot of people who are really true believers and will always be, because they've accepted so much contradictory and destructive ideas already. But there's probably a lot of people who just don't know what to think. And the more it's been discussed and the more people see other points of view, I think the more there's a critical mass of potentially people who are pushing back on it, at least ideologically. And the ruling class has a lot to lose if they push too far and then people actually push back in a material way.
Yeah, and that's why. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's so important what you said, is because I see this all the time with conspiracy bros. You guys know James Corbett, right?
Oh yeah.
With who's I'm a big fan of, and he always just reminds people like it's never just one conspiracy. It's never like these elite or whatever. It's always a competing faction of all different groups, politically, economically. It might appear, and it very well might be uniform in certain things and certain slices of time, if all the cards align. But yeah, right now you have the economic thing. They don't want to give up this cash cow of people just funneling money to the top corporations. But politically, the Democrats want to make the Biden administration seem like the good guys, you know. But in order to do that, they have to like breakdance through like a minefield and pretend like all these things that were true 2 weeks ago aren't true today. And in doing so, you're going to cut a percentage of your base away because they're going to call it as bullshit, but not as big as a percentage as you'd think. That's God love, like CNN and MSNBC liberals. They literally they'll believe the double triple mask thing. They'll believe like anything you tell them. At least the conservatives have some kind of like fuck you mentality, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this before.
It's refreshing.
Conservatives believe dumb shit too, for sure. But
they would believe it coming from their. I still think a lot of them would believe it if it was role reverse. If we had President Hillary Clinton for the last 4 years,
man,
COVID
can you
hit,
imagine if? Can you imagine if Trump was actually playing like 5D chess and he's like, actually, we need to lock down everything and close the school, like gave a total like
if he was
psychology curveball, like
he's really scared.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, those are great points.
I think either anybody that's truly in consuming legacy media from like the bipartisan kind of thing, I think any of those people, it was completely based on who was in power when this hit, and I don't listen to those two people. I give credit to conservatives, but I give more credit to people like us who are not that, and we're kind of just like I've up until really that time, until March, I considered myself like I'm on the left. I am on the left. I was during like a month period. It was like Bernie's campaign just took a shit, and then COVID hit.
Such a wild
that was like all my politics in one. Basically, we're just we're thrown out the window. And so for me, like,
seeing the left react to lockdowns.
Well,
the
problem
realize,
is,
like, this is not. I agree with the principles. Like, I'm a principled person, but these are not the people that I want in power to make these fucking decisions.
Oh no,
you feel the same, right? Yeah, it's like
especially because in the Bernie campaign, like the signature policy was Medicare for all. So it was really strange to see this shift to. I mean, I guess there was some lip service paid to Medicare for all, but the left basically, their main thing was to shut everything down, have everyone stay home, and impose whatever authoritarian, draconian restrictions are necessary, instead of continuing to talk about what was supposed to be their signature policy. So that was really strange. That was a very bizarre turn. And I think, I'm in the same boat as you guys. That was kind of my complete loss of trust in that group, or just feeling of alienation. But if anything, the whole past year has just really exposed kind of how weak the human mind is, and like how far back probably a lot of certain indoctrination was going on that just didn't even realize. And now looking back, I don't even understand how people can be at this place of just so much conformity and opportunism and unwillingness to like even think or research or change their minds in any way.
Just being so, and look, I will never not want Medicare for all. I'll never not want most of the stuff even that they're talking about. I'm like still on board with a lot. I didn't change my economics. The problem is like, you see this going on. It's almost been a year. It's almost March. It's almost been a year since this has happened. And you still think we didn't do everything right. You still think we as people didn't do this. Like, I'm going to quote one of my favorite theorists that I read. I don't read a lot of theory, but Posting Menace. He's a huge guy that I study. And he says COVID-19 is not my problem. That's my favorite quote from him. It's maybe my favorite tweet of all time. And I agree. It's not our problem. So, like, again, if it's fumbled that far at the top, at what point do we just hit the resume button? Right? At what point do we just,
like,
no, like, because they still think like, hey, that last year we didn't get the lockdown right. Let's do it again. That's what people on the left are saying.
You're saying you individually didn't wear enough masks. You didn't social distance enough, rather than the elites and the building the hospital. And especially with the whole like the whole justification for this bullshit was we're running out of hospital room. And it's a year later, and that's not true on the face of it. That's easily verified that that's never been true. But B, you couldn't build some more fucking hospitals in a year, like if during this crazy global pandemic, and that no one's done that because they knew, they ran the numbers and they knew it was unnecessary. And so and that's what's funny about all these contradictions on the left. How we're never supposed to blame individuals, but all of a sudden we're only blaming individuals for COVID, right?
And it's people who have different politics than me. Just shockingly, the people that have politics than me are the reason that I
just want to get a haircut.
And they did again. There was never relief coming. We knew that. Look, I'm not gonna lie. The first month, I was like, "Hey, mate, we'll see." You know, I because I hadn't done it. After a while, you have to realize they're doing a dog and pony show, and you're not going to go out in the street and fight for it, right? You're not going to. The people, you and I have gotten into like those arguments. People, well, I've been in New Orleans with 10 people in the streets, like yelling. It's like that's not what I mean. They can ignore that. There's no reason to do it.
And we're willing to put up massive protests, the likes of which the world has never seen before, for zero material concessions or gains or economic or racial policy change. But we refuse to do it for the greatest upward transfer of wealth in human history. That's when it was everyone's wearing masks for the George Floyd protests, those protests were totally understandable. Like we're not anti-protest people here. But then there's just nothing, just crickets for all the other shit.
Remember, there was no spike. That's what I said. No spike from the largest.
It was politically righteous. So
yes. The virus is woke. It just goes right over that. It goes right over that and into the trailer parks. Yeah. It goes like a top
like a sound wall at the airport. It's just like,
those arcs that you see from the jets. Yeah, exactly. It goes right in there. And I don't know. It just at what point do you just say like I need to live. I need to live my life. Like I need to. I understand what I want is it, but right now I can't get that. You know, right now I need to be able to like keep this roof over my head. Right. Like I need to do this. And the left just doesn't have that. The left is like they're so married to this belief, which is fine, right? Like it's fine to never change your mind as far as like what you want. And I didn't. But to say that like, no, you need to stay inside. No, schools can never be open until there's zero COVID. Like the zero COVID thing is a nightmare to me. You have to know that this isn't going anywhere. You have to know it's not. Even if we all get the shot, there's people that are getting it with the shot. Like it's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I think I mean, you're right. People really like to go back to like, well, if we had just done it right, then it would be going well. And so that's just not in reality. That doesn't have nothing to do with reality. It's like saying, well, if we lived in a perfect world and all people were perfect, then things would have worked out. Like that's not the type. That's not.
Or what if a conservative tells them, "Oh, you don't like your job? Well, if you went back then and had learned to code, you could have had a better job." It's like it's the same concept. Yeah. Okay. We pretty much did it right. We have a high mass compliance. You know what I mean? These
higher
people,
than
they're
most
allowed
places in the world. That's the crazy thing.
The pro lockdown people, the pro lockdown and the pro COVID hysteria people are allowed to be anecdotal, and we're not. That's what I hate.
Yeah.
We're allowed to be anecdotal and be like, I know this one dude.
Well, that's a classic.
Yeah, exactly. It applies to a lot of things. Like it's not, but they're allowed to say, I know this one somebody that died of it. So you did it. But I'm like, well, here's the numbers, and they're like, oh, the numbers, great. You know, and so yeah. But they're the people saying 70% of people want Medicare for all. So do numbers mean anything?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I especially looking at California, I'm not really sure what was something more that California was supposed to do following all the recommendations that we didn't do.
They should have changed the flag to a mask, like instead of the banner.
When under immense pressure, they decided to reopen outdoor dining and stuff. People were like online saying that this is like genocide and like going to be mass murder. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing.
No, you're right. No, you're right. I am. You can laugh on here. I don't know. Yeah. No, it was funny.
I mean, they're just fundamentally okay. Like I have sympathy for them because I feel like you have to, remember people are human, especially because part of the problem is like how much they dehumanize other people. But I think that they're in a different reality. Like they're not responding to data or scientific information or any numbers because they're responding to like ideas in their head. They're like AOC. Like everything is like what my idea that I'm scared of in my head, and that's my reality. And
yes.
Whatever has happened isn't part of whatever has happened in the real world or in a measurable way or in a verifiable way isn't something that I'm gonna deal with.
Yeah, and I sound like
Yeah.
facts. I sound like Ben Shapiro. Facts don't care about your feelings. Like when I, that's what I hate. I
Yeah.
hate that that's what I become when I'm just literally trying to let people. Like, I'm sorry. I see a
Yeah.
lot of people, and I was talking about it online today. I see a lot of people saying, you know, even just, it has nothing to do with COVID, but they'll be saying, this is how we unite people. This is how we, you know, get the working class movement and all that stuff. And it's a bunch of people who, like, honestly, I'm sorry, are nowhere near the working class. You know, even people that I like, But I feel like that's the same thing with the COVID lockdown people. It's like, you have a job that's able to be done at home. That's able to be, regardless of what virtual learning and online stuff does to people, you still have a way to make money while being at home. I don't.
Yeah.
I work in construction. I don't. Like, I don't have a way to do that. And part of me just kind of red pilling on this was going back to work.
Yeah.
I went back to work and I was like, oh, there's not just some floating, like, invisible killing thing, like just going around and just wiping people, like younger, healthy people out.
Yeah.
You know? And these people won't even allow themselves to feel that way. Like, we're catering to anxieties right now is what we're doing with this lockdown. We're catering to people's anxiety. Yeah. It's and I'm scared that it won't change. I'm scared that even when everything does open up, these people are still going to, like,
oh yeah,
no, we do homeschool at home, like a different. I don't want to get too far into the learning thing yet, because we will get into that. But there's going to be people that are just going to constantly try to just, well, I'm still in COVID times, like I'm still in this, and that's so bad for our society.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you're right that they're really attached to their particular ideology around it, and they have a basically religious devotion to some of their superstitions. But I guess, like, at least it's good to know it's definitely one particular class. So it's like it's you know, the work at home, like the laptop professional class, professional managerial class, or the clerk class, or whatever you want to call them, the like simple management, information management class. I think is like they're the most devoted to it, and they're the most willing to go as far as it takes, and you know, never let it go. So I think there's probably a majority of people who are not subscribed to that mentality, even if there is a very forceful, very intense group of people who will never let it go.
Well, it's weird. I'm looking at the people in my family. Like, I feel I have an interesting story, and
anecdotal. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, there's people. I'd say, like, most of the people in my family that I'm close to now are at the stage in their life where they're at the peak. They're coming into the peak of their career, making good money, being able to work from home, even getting bonuses during this time, and promotions and stuff like that. You know, buying new properties, things like that, things I'm very proud of. You know, I'm like, that's fucking awesome. I'll never hate or anything. But they do what I guess what I'm saying is they're not like the crazy religious COVID believers. You know, I'll talk to them about some of this stuff and they'll agree, and they are rather class conscious in general. They're not elitist or anything. But even that being said, just the fact of being able to work from home at a computer, even if you are class conscious and everything, you still lose touch of the day-to-day and the everyday. Even if you do believe that, you know, essential workers, quote unquote, should be given a raise or whatever, it's still easy to just make those words rather than actions when you're just sitting at home getting bonuses and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like even if I feel even that within the PMC class, most are just going along for the ride, you know?
Yeah.
But there are certainly large vocal some. And for me, I'm like, I was working in, you know, food service industry before this. And like, I had friends that were like, during the first couple of weeks, they were like, hey, do you got like food, you know, that I could have and shit? It was crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone's out of a job. And then, but I was lucky enough, you know, I found this trading thing and I was just obsessed with that in fact, I wanted the time to trade,
Yeah.
you know, like online. So it was kind of a weird, and, you know, I know it's like a meme. A lot of people,
but you could have done it. You could have done that though. Like you could, I mean, I understand you wouldn't have got the unemployment, but like you could have done. I'm not saying like
Oh, and
the criticism, but
unemployment helps, the unemployment helped me tremendously. Like,
but it doesn't take a mass shutdown to want to live your dream.
Totally.
That's like this weird commercial thing that you see.
Yeah.
Like I saw one where they did Dolly. It was a Super Bowl commercial. It was a Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, but they switched it to 5 to 9. It was a Squarespace thing.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, get your job after work now, your shitty gig economy job. And they do the little jingle, and it's like actually Dolly singing, and it's very depressing. And and Dolly Parton gave like $1 million for vaccine research too. So I don't know.
Damn.
But
yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is like this, everyone, because we're so bubble-fied now, we only have our own little thoughts and everything. And I do find it funny that culture, a lot has been spoken about this, but the people making the most money working from home doing this are generally the same people that went to school during the ultimate coddled safe space. Your experience is the ultimate validity of everything, kind of like AOC thing you're talking about. So the people running the show economically, upper middle class, are the same ones that you can't challenge them on anything, because they'll just freak out and be like, that's not my experience, I don't want my grandma to die, and everything, all this type of thing. So it's kind of this, whereas the working class, like you said, you get red pilled when you go back to work and you see that people are living their lives and around doing their thing.
Like you said, our last episode, you said it was a first world problem. And I honestly, that blew my mind. And like that's up there with posting men. It's not my problem. It's a first.
It's
to work. It's a first class problem. Let's say it that way. Sure.
It's everyone. Well, it's funny, Alex G. You mentioned the the massive, what's coming with the world hunger and the increase in poverty and everything through. I think the World Health Organization has even touted that. It's not like a fringe idea. Like, that's going to happen.
Like,
right?
yeah.
But during COVID, everyone was just working the fields, doing their thing. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of people didn't have time to shut down. They were just doing their thing. And everyone's like, why didn't the African continent get totally ravaged by COVID? It's like, well, probably because they just lived their lives, and that's what would have happened everywhere if we would have just done
they recognize
thing.
Other threats.
Yeah.
Like threats that have a higher death rate.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I hate saying it, but that's the truth. Like, to say, if you say you have this death rate, there's so many. I've heard so many people bring up different percentages. Oh, it's this percentage. It's this percentage. Either way, in certain places, hunger is like a higher killer than that.
Totally,
and just they're like, I'll take my chances. And I respect that idea. Like, it doesn't shatter leftist principles if you go back to work. It doesn't. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of rambling there for a second, but I just feel, it's weird how everyone's has such a colored view of this just based on what they've been doing day to day for the last 10 months, like how they go to work, if they go to work, what that, it just kind of colors your whole experience. Like, you can say you care about the working class and you want, wages increased or everything, but you're still ordering out on Postmates every single day.
And how do we organize, by the way? How do we organize our workplace?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just saying. Like let's say that's the thing. We're because I remember for a long time, general strike, this and that. Hey, cool. I'm down. Let's do it. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be done, but I'm just saying I'm down to move towards like a empowered thing. Not gonna happen on computers. Not gonna happen.
I remember many years ago there was an article in the New York Times that said something like the top 20% of the income range has almost no contact with the rest of the country.
I agree.
And that was maybe, I don't know, I don't want to estimate how many years, but many years ago. So I feel like that definitely has an impact in terms of people's understanding about what everyday life is like for the majority of Americans. And then on top of that, I feel like just one thing about the people working from home, it's not really that good for them, like the situation.
Right.
Some of it is for some people, I'm sure there's some people who are genuinely enjoying it. But I think a lot of people are really depressed and think they just have convinced themselves it's just like something that they have to be for, and like they, even no matter how much it impacts them negatively. And a lot of, teachers would be like one example of just, there's a certain element that seems self-destructive in what people are doing or what their approach has been in some ways. And I don't totally understand that, because a lot of the people of the same class are actually pretty like miserable too.
Talk about the teacher experience and like
Yeah,
the
or
inside,
and even
the inside track on. Yeah.
Well, first, so Biden has his plan to open schools, right? He has a plan, or at least, I mean, I don't know. I've seen a bunch of. I know the states can have their plan to open public schools, right? And was it? I mean, you and I were talking about it. It was kind of like the schools have these like red zones, right? Was that the thing? Like now with COVID opening, Alex, where if schools are violating certain things, that then they get dinged for it.
They put out a plan. Okay, so just like his campaign promise was that he wanted to have it was something like we'll have majority of schools open in 100 days. And then his press secretary said, oh, we'll have like 1 day a week open after 100 days.
Yeah.
80% not open. Yeah.
And then the CDC said, okay, because there's been data for a long time since the summer, countless studies that show that schools don't increase transmission rates of COVID, and that some studies even indicate that it's probably safer if schools are open, or that school transmission is often much lower than community transmission. So there's not really a medical reason for them to be closed. So the CDC sort of cited this evidence and said, okay, well, we should open the schools with precautions, whatever that means. And then the CDC issued its guidance a couple weeks later. And in the guidance, it was like it had almost all of the schools in these red zones. And there was only one place where outdoor sports would be allowed. And a lot of the places in the red zones already had their schools open. So essentially the CDC's opening guidance was really a school closure guidance.
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't necessarily think that those schools will end up in certain states closing, but in, I don't know, states like California, it's really not going to happen unless there's a ton of parent pressure to reopen.
Which there isn't. Huh. Like, I don't think there is. Like, what do you, I don't know. And again, I don't know if you could say from your own experiences, but like from what I hear, I think there's parents hate virtual learning, but I still think they're at that crossroad of whether they can put, like, do they feel right sending their kid back to school after they've spent so much time hawkeyeing over and making sure they were safe, and the transmission rates are what they are. But I talked to I don't have any kids, but I talked to some of my coworkers that have kids, and they're kind of like, like I want my kid back in school because like I can't pay for childcare. You know what I mean? I can't pay for this, but us at the end of the day, am I going to be the guy that sent his kid back to school and like there's blood on my hands, you know? Like, is that, are you hearing that? Is that what's happening from parents, or is that just what I'm hearing?
I only see parents online like pushing back, because it's not really something that I don't talk to people about it that I would know, because it's like not my place. But I definitely do know parents. There are a lot of parents are scared, and a lot of working class or low income parents are scared too. Yeah. The one thing I would say about those parents is that if they heard from the school district and from the teachers, oh no, actually it is safe, that would be a huge factor in convincing them that it was safe. Whereas if the only input that they've really gotten from, people they trust, authority figures they trust, and teachers that they trust, is that it's not safe, then that has a huge effect in convincing people that it's not safe for a long time. So if schools were to open, there would have to be a concerted effort to make people feel comfortable. Because there was a concerted effort to make them feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So I think that
beautifully put. Yeah.
A huge problem also is that it's been almost a year, and so everyone has developed routines and changed their lifestyle to accommodate online learning. Yeah. So you can't suddenly also now tell them like, okay, now you're going to go back to your old routine and your old lifestyle immediately. Sure. So I think for some parents, even it would just be hard. It's especially if it's just for one day a week or a couple days a week. It's just hard logistic. It's so hard to make that logistical change. So if you were offered hybrid and you have to bring your kid in one day a week or make sure they get there, versus totally online, a lot of people might just choose totally online because it's easier. And another issue is basically if we start phasing in the fall, and there's a hybrid model, it's very possible that through a hybrid model, kids get even less instruction. It's like hard to understand how they can possibly get less than online, but you could possibly get less because of the need to be like online in the morning and then come in for an hour and then go back home and the transport and stuff like that.
Who's transporting them too? That's the other thing.
Yeah. And then also if teachers have to do online and in person at the same time, then there's less you can ask them to really do in terms of covering content because they're being all over the place. So I think that, really what should happen is kids should be back full time tomorrow, but there's so many problems that have arisen and also so many potential kind of compromises like hybrid that will create more issues that I think a lot of this battle has probably basically been lost.
That sucks.
Yeah, I felt that way along. I knew that it was going to go down this way, that we try and do all these dumb half measures and even the plexiglass in the fucking classroom, like all
that
this stuff.
That is
so
the most. I was gonna bring that up. That is disheartening watching that.
Disheartening, and I have some little cousins that are they're like 6 and 8 now, right? And I had no idea. They're in California. I'm not right now, and I had no idea. Their mom is like, she's kind of on our tip, being like, "Fuck this COVID shit and everything." And she was saying it's like every parent, my kids are really struggling right now during this process, with all these. And she was like, my oldest boy, who's 8, with the Zoom classes and everything. I'm like, hold up, they're making 8-year-olds do Zoom classes. I was so blown away. I was like, why the fuck would you make an 8-year-old sit in front of I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. I thought that was at middle school at least or something.
No,
I was like,
it's
that
everybody.
is insane. That is insane. Like, of course the kid's gonna fucking put an 8-year-old in front of a virtual classroom.
But daycare. I work because I work in the road, so I see a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have it's easy. It helps when I talk about things because I'm out in a different street every day. Like we do road restoration and stuff like that, and we'll see, dude, these private daycares, private schools, hopping. Masks and stuff. And they got the yard duty person, social distance, monitor person out in the yard and stuff. And I'm like, what's their data? Is that out? Is that free? No,
is it on researching it?
No, I don't see. I mean, this is gonna sound messed up. I don't see body bags being brought into the school or anything. It seems like it's going well.
And also, maybe you guys comment on. I forget what article it was or something, but it was just another one of those teachers bitching articles. Where it was like teachers refuse to go in the classroom.
Is that Chicago?
Without the vaccine? Probably. I don't know. Yeah, I would assume Chicago. And they had this line in there, though. So it was like, teachers don't want to go in without getting vaccinated. So instead, we're going to send proxy teachers in to teach.
Oh, yeah. I think that was
the scabs.
And it's like, hold up. Are they vaccinated? So are they protected? Why is your life more valuable if you're so concerned about this? It was so mind blowing. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think that was in Fairfax or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or maybe it happened in more than one place, but that's definitely the model that's going to be adopted if things go this way, where you have classroom monitors who are not unionized, not credentialed, who get paid far less, and kids on computers. Learning on the computer, and the teachers at home on Zoom teaching them. If education tech and stuff gets more advanced, then those people aren't necessary anymore. So a lot of I think what gets lost in the conversation is that you have this huge amount of public money, huge amount of public funds going into education, And a lot of that money actually then goes back to people because it goes back to people in form of salary. So it would be really, really convenient if you could eliminate those middlemen or those, inconvenient human beings and just take the public money and give it to private companies.
Shit.
So,
The funnel.
and that's
Yeah,
why, like, a lot of this virtual learning stuff, first of all, the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation and a lot of investors in charter schools have a lot of history pushing online learning and virtual education, and it pushing platforms and also encouraging teachers and charters to like adopt a modern classroom framework that uses this. And even the Koch brothers organization had also wanted to push this model as a way to basically get rid of the teachers and the teachers union.
Stand up guys, those brothers. Yep.
Yeah.
And
then the other thing is that for the schools, a lot of the conversation is just about kids in the moment, which is definitely a big problem because there's, if you remember the Las Vegas thing where they had a ton of kids committing suicide, so they decided, okay, now we have to reopen. Or there was 30% increase in mental health ER visits for adolescents, I think, since schools closed in the country. So it's definitely really urgent what kids are going through now and the situation for them right now. But just beyond that, I think there's an element in which education and children are being targeted in a certain way because whatever is the education system is a reflection of the labor model. So if as sort of working conditions keep eroding and unemployment grows, or as the gig economy sort of grows, contract work where your boss is just an app, stuff like that, you don't necessarily need to train people on our current education system where they need to be around people, they need to be on a schedule, everything has a very clear start and end time. You actually want to train people on an unstructured time, right? So that it's really the battle for schools is like really a battle for the future.
It ripples out all this, everything now is we're going to ripple out 15, 30, 45 years in the future.
Yeah, you don't want Mavis Beacon teaching your kids, and you don't want like school lunches being delivered by DoorDash and stuff. Like, subscribe to our school lunch meal on DoorDash. Like, I'm telling you, that's where my brain goes. I don't know if we're there yet, but honestly, like, it's all the new stuff they roll out still surprises me. So why wouldn't that happen? It's gonna be nuts. I don't. And as far as the union goes, like the teachers union goes, it's so weird because I talk to you, so I feel like I have a good grasp on the teachers union as any non-teacher would, but when I see the left when they see that word, the union, right, automatically they subscribe to like teachers won't go back to school. They have the left support. Even like I said, the liberals got what they wanted. They got Trump out, so like they're kind of just ready to like slowly roll it out. But it's the left that is always lost. The left always loses. But the left sees the teachers union pushing back a little bit, and they go, "This is a labor crisis. This is they want to but they don't see that the scabs coming in. They don't, because none of them actually know anything about labor. That's the sad part. Like it's they're most of the people I know, some of the best like labor minds that I've seen, they aren't like online Twitter leftists.
No.
And so with the teachers union, if you could just speak on them, whatever you can say, just where maybe they don't have quite the right intentions.
I mean, there's a lot of shenanigans have been going on with the teachers union. I can't really say why, and I feel like if you're looking at it from the outside and it's perplexing why the teachers are in the teachers union are doing this, just know that on the inside it's also very perplexing. And I was involved in the union for a really long time and did a lot of organizing work, and we were on strike, and I was very involved in that. So and despite that knowledge, I'm still confused. So I could understand for parents or for anyone else why it would be very confusing, because I'm not really sure psychologically what's going on. But the issue I think with the teachers union is that they decided a long time ago that they didn't want schools to be open because of safety reasons. And now as things have gone on, even though it is clear that that's not really a legitimate argument, they're very much sticking to that narrative. And even the California Teachers Association put out like an ad about how dangerous it would be for schools to open and stuff.
I saw that. I saw it yesterday on TV. Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, like our money, like from our salary, goes to pay for this.
Yeah, sick.
So basically, I think some of it right now is just average rank and file teachers are extremely misinformed about the risks. And it's a toxic environment to have the conversation, so people just steer clear of it.
Yeah.
Damn.
And on top of that, our union leadership, we have a very bureaucratic union. Our union leadership get like in a statewide get paid a lot more than your average teacher. They have an incestuous relationship with the California Democrats. They put a lot of money into lobbying. They put a lot of our dues money into funding campaigns for politicians or for initiatives. So it's all really tied up in larger politics.
Yeah, vehicle, like a vehicle for them. Yeah.
And so I think that it's not necessarily pro-labor or pro-union to just agree with whatever the union is doing in the moment. Like you actually have to look at whether it's a good strategy or not. Mm-hmm. And this is not a good strategy because number one, we're hemorrhaging support. We're probably hemorrhaging some members that are not happy. And that will probably just continue to increase because like I said, I'm like at my limit and I was involved in the union for a long time. I'll probably never stop paying dues. But if you don't have that background and you're frustrated, you'll probably leave.
So can you be, I'm sorry, can you not, you can be a non-union teacher?
Well, because of do you know the Supreme Court case Janus?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, it just passed a couple of years ago, I think, and basically it gave you the right to you could stop paying your dues. So you still get the benefits of collective bargaining and stuff, but you can opt out.
So why do you pay dues then?
You paid, like, why does anyone pay dues?
Yeah, well, I'm saying if you could get all the benefits.
Because you still want the benefits of collective bargaining so that you can still, like, as a coalition, like as a union all together, negotiate for your salary and for your benefits.
So how's this going to?
Otherwise, those things will disappear.
Okay.
So, but basically, with the union also, if we have a remote education situation, we have far less leverage to go on strike. Yeah. I think we maybe talked about this last time, but without the ability to go on strike, because now for attendance in California, if a kid just logs onto a website, that counts as attendance, as opposed to being in a building at the time for each class. Yeah. So if teachers wanted to get a raise now, or let's say in the future if we go back in person, then the district could very well say, okay, well, we're just going to have kids log onto this website from their computer at home, and that's their attendance. And then the district doesn't lose money from the state. And then there's no incentive for the district to make a deal with the teachers.
Crazy.
So it's a bad labor strategy on like 3 different fronts, I think. And yeah, I mean, it's just not pro-union to watch the union self-immolate. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the problem is, and my union is the same thing. The views of a union should be the overall political views of its workers, right? I think we should all agree with that. But like, my union was like, we're voting Biden-Harris. That's what we're voting. And I told the story, I think once on the pod, but I was asking the rep, I go, why? Well, Trump's racist, all that kind of stuff. I go, okay, but what's Biden going to do for union members? Oh, we're going to push them that way, to the push them left thing. We're going to push them into a more union thing. And I'm like, well, unions were supposed to like kind of have like a stronghold on politicians, you know what I mean? Or at least have some leverage to push back and at least have their workers catered to.
Yeah.
No, not anymore. Now it's just kind of like a, I mean, I still love being a union member, and trust me, in construction, it's 1000% better to be union than non-union, because it's, I mean, it basically just becomes a race to the bottom as far as wages go if you don't. But I don't, I don't. What are they should be asking the teachers what they want to do, rather than just taking the few that are like, I'm scared, and then running with that as an ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I really fear also with the teachers is that all the people who want schools to open now hate the teachers. So,
because conservatives always, like, whenever there was a teacher strike, would always have those little cheeky kind of remarks too. So it feels like another one of those for them, right?
Yeah. So anyone who feels like, okay, no, I really value public education and I think we should save public education, also now has an extremely, and I'm not defending the teachers, but antagonistic kind of mindset towards the teachers. And one big problem there is that a lot of what was keeping public education afloat is the teachers union. Not now, but in many past battles in terms of like trying to like this teacher strikes and also the fight against privatization, a lot of that happens through the teachers union in an effort to hold on to jobs. So if you have a situation where the people who value that are not in education, the people who value public education the most, also hate a group that historically has kind of been somewhat responsible for preserving public education,
right,
it's also a recipe for disaster. And I'm not trying to defend the teachers. I'm just saying that this is all kind of leading to a collapse, probably.
Everyone from every side pointing a finger at you for different reasons.
And within.
Yeah, exactly. There's no solidarity to be found from that. Yeah.
So I think that probably privatization will increase a lot, even if they manage to, because there are a lot of places in the US where schools are open. So probably there will be a reopening plan in a lot of places, even here in California, but for the fall, who knows? But even once that happens, I think some of this has probably been a death blow, and privatization will have so many easy avenues to increase.
Yeah. It's crazy because they used to frame it like a Betsy DeVos. She's trying to privatize schools. She's trying to do it. But then this is like the roundabout way to do it ethically. Yeah, it's like this.
Betsy DeVos is getting what she wants due to the teachers union, and that was the whole. What I was tripping on was, well, and during the beginning of this pandemic and throughout, the wings of like the ultra elite and the dregs of society economically, the low wage workers, non-union, were the ones that were most affected. I mean, like all the wealth went from the straight to the bottom, straight to the top, and the middle class kept the upper middle class kept the jobs rolling without having to do much, without, kind of like what we alluded to before. But in maybe like 5-8 years time, as these effects ripple out and start to take those teacher jobs, start to take those upper middle class jobs, as more and more, ultra capitalist types go like, we really don't need to be paying all these people all these huge salaries and stuff.
Always trying to reduce the overhead. Cheaper. Yeah.
Like, I feel we're gonna see this huge, I could be wrong, but like this weird backlash on all this COVID stuff going on now. Like the Stockholm syndrome will evaporate, and and everyone will. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on this. This is just my prediction, but as soon as the upper middle class is starting to be touched, you're going to see a giant revolt.
Always,
because all of a sudden the people, and I'm not saying teachers are upper middle class or anything like that, but I'm saying it just seems to be a mindset that's going to flip going forward. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. As the bottom already knows they've been fucked, right? And the elite already know they won, and that this is a winning formula. But it's the people whose like day to day hasn't changed that much, or like you said, like the teachers union arguing for their own failure and for their own lack of need of teachers and stuff. I don't know. I'm interested. It's such a fascinating dynamic how it's going to play out over the next I think 5 years is like a good time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's the weird thing about it is a lot of the people who have become sort of the ideological foot soldiers for a lot of this, in, you know, like you said, in a few years, their professions might not really be sustainable, as there's more, you know, tech encroachment and stuff. Or I think that also a lot of those people in certain because even in healthcare professions, they want to move everything to like telehealth,
Yeah.
Oh God.
teletherapy. So I think that there is an element of that, like there's a self-destructive
Yeah, firemen want to put
component. I don't
fire,
know how else to
yeah.
understand it.
Firemen want to put fires out online. Yeah, no, it's terrible. Yeah, yeah.
But, I mean, destroying the middle class is like a huge goal.
Oh yeah,
It seems like
Because-
we've accelerated that tenfold in the last year.
Yeah, and that's
right?
why
It's
like that's why Walmart, you know, Costco, like all these huge box stores are open, and
well,
small
don't hate on
businesses-
Costco. Hey, don't hate. We're
Sorry,
pro
Costco is
Yeah.
union labor
We
too.
like
Okay.
Costco podcast
We,
here,
we like Costco. Okay.
listen to the last episode.
Okay,
There
Target.
were a lot of stores you could have picked. Okay. Yeah. and-
Target? Okay, big stores,
There,
right?
thank you,
Chain
thank you.
stores are open, and people can go inside, whereas a lot of, you know, small businesses had much more restrictions and had to close. So that's a way to directly hurt the middle class.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that getting rid of the middle class is really important, because for the ruling class, because if they have people with extremely low standard of living, they might have problems on their hand, but it's harder for people to organize, harder
Yeah.
for people to organize as workers, or even just to push back or vote for populist candidates, stuff like that.
Populism, that's racism. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But the I guess I you know if you had anything more about the schools, because I wanted to move on to one more thing. Was there any last statement you had on the schools or anything like that? Because I think it's
I think I said everything. I would just I would just add that you know, the people that this is going to affect the most negatively are low income students and students in vulnerable populations. But the whole effect total is, even if you're not a parent, you're not around kids, you're not a teacher, it's really going to have all these ripple effects for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I treat it like almost like we bought a bunch of stuff on credit to get through a pandemic. And like eventually you have to pay the bill. Eventually the lockdown deaths will occur, right? Like I get in that argument with the leftist people. I try not to, but it happens from time to time. And one of the ones I got into the most was one of those like guys with like the dolphin and the flowers and all that stuff. I was like, and it was your article.
And flowers.
Yeah, I don't even know. You know what I mean? It might have been a donut. It could have been anything. There was definitely a dolphin.
Yeah.
And so like I shared your article because he had said like, we cannot put kids back in school. This cannot happen. These are our young comrades that are. I'm like, oh god.
Fuck.
And then I put your article. I was like, actually, I didn't even say it like in a condescending way. I said it like, hey, you should read this. Like, it's actually a pretty good summation, and it was your lockdown one and the schools one that we originally talked about. I said the came out with me with just a bunch of anecdotal evidence. All the other dolphins came at me, and then and I'm like, dude, what is this even about? You know what I mean? Like, are you trying to protect people? Because I'm like, the lockdown deaths will occur, and they'll go, well, yeah, but we're fighting for relief. And I'm like, dude, people are killing themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not even because, like, I mean, they are broke, but like, I guarantee you, there's people that are killing themselves that aren't. It isn't just because they're broke. It's because they haven't seen anybody and they haven't lived life. Like the rug's been swept out from under them.
People are dying, and you're justifying it by wanting some like pet ideological political project that has no hope in the current climate to ever take foothold. But you want to be on the right. You want to be on the right side. And I remember in March,
they won't be accountable for it if they're wrong, right? Because they are wrong about the lockdown. But they won't. We have to, like I said, we have to assume the COVID deaths, right? We have to assume the like, oh, you want this open? Every opening death that when we reopen thing is on you. Well, it's like, all right, well then the lockdown deaths are on you. That's how it works. And I guarantee you, the score is going to look way skewed in your favor in 5 years.
And there was a super LARPy kind of, I remember, and I was part of it. I think like in March, where you're like, oh man, this is going to expose capitalism for what it really is. Like, this is great. Kind of this nihilistic.
They took
thing.
the mask off for you, though. They just were like, fine, here, you want to see it? Sure. Yeah, great.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay inside. Yeah.
That's so, yeah. But we've
talked about that. We've talked about that. But one last thing, and just the last topic I think we go on is Gavin Newsom. We don't get a lot of don't get a lot of California people on here, or at least people familiar with the state of California. Yeah. Gavin Newsom, there's been people, I see his name floated out for 2024 or 2028 for presidential election, which is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life, because that guy, I've never seen somebody fail upward as hard as that guy. And well, that's the true Democrat way, is to fail upward, I should say. He's probably got some competition in that regard, but just his trajectory in the last year it's been funny and sad at the same time. Just all the stuff that has been. Winery stays open the entire time in Napa because the data says it's fine. It's like, well, outdoor wineries, look at like Alex Berenson that was on, Joe Rogan and a really good person to actually get some like context on COVID stats and stuff. He's kind of like, well, outdoor anything should be fine.
Yeah.
Like outdoor, it shouldn't matter what city you're in. Like, it doesn't matter if it's outdoor in, this city or Redding, California, or Napa.
But Napa people are really rich, so it's cool, though.
Yeah. They have so much property that they're far away from the person next to them. So that's
I need
fine.
at least 6 acres of space between each of
So the winery happens. That's whatever. I'm in my head. I'm laughing. I'm just like, Newsom, great, And then the French Laundry incident. No mask inside. Conspiracy theory brain to me was kind of like, he knew that was coming. That guy loves a photo op. I don't think he's ever had a photo taken of him where he wasn't expecting it. Like, he's one of those guys, like, he's always ready for the camera. I've almost thought it was kind of
like the wildfires in the North Face jacket, the he's like all like stoic.
Yeah, the wildfire. He wanted someone to start like a little fake fire around him that he could put out with his North Face, like just like put it out like that. And I stopped it. And the French Laundry thing was funny to me because I was like, there was a series of like Pelosi going to get her hair done without a mask and all that. Gavin Newsom. I think there were, wasn't there a teacher lady that like went on vacation, or like a teachers union lady that went on like vacation? Didn't you go?
Yeah, there was like Chicago is crazy. There was a CTU, someone in a leadership position in CTU, who I think was arguing for schools had to be closed, but she then went on vacation. So like sick. On a flight.
She was taking beach selfies. She was like on the beach. She didn't even care. Yeah.
I mean, Chicago is pretty insane because I think it was really, really contentious. And they also had a lot of politics around the vaccine, getting teachers the vaccine over like anybody else in the city and all this stuff like that.
Yeah. And then with Newsom, with the French Laundry thing, I'm always like, is it kind of like a subconscious message to me? Or maybe I'm going crazy, but where it's like, these are rules for you, not for me. I can go do this. I'm fine. I have enough money to survive COVID. I have this. I have healthcare. I have, it seems like that. Like it seemed like that. And I'm not saying he leaked it on purpose. I'm just saying there's a back of my mind, and that's probably just a problem with my line of thinking sometimes, is maybe I play 5D chess and stuff, but it almost just seemed like with all those things happening, and it happened so closely together, that it was like, you stay inside. I don't,
And the defenders, the fucking people white knighting for Gavin Newsom, being like, actually, like,
none of them live here. I'm sorry. None of even like my mom is the most like CNN liberal of all time. She's like, Newsom sucks.
Yeah, no.
Like none of that's the funny thing. Nobody here likes him. It's like he's got the classic like look of like, oh, that's a leader. He sucks. Like I've always said he's Patrick Bateman. Like he looks just like it's American Psycho, but like managing to be worse. You know what I mean? Like Psycho, he's that guy. Like he's always, I if I was him, I'd lean into it and say he's gonna go return videotapes and stuff like that. But he is god awful. And his record with private utility companies, like just never punishing them for burning down the entire state. He's brutal.
Ridiculous.
It's bad. Yeah.
I mean, I think he's scared now because of the recall Newsom.
Yeah. Do you think that has any legs? Do you think that actually has legs?
I would say
Yeah.
maybe I don't know, but I mean, he's like pushing for schools to open sooner now.
Yeah.
And I think
it's true.
Yeah.
I did see that the other day. He tweeted that.
I think a lot of that is because of the recall thing, because he's losing like that's a huge contingent. He's losing his parents and the small business people. So I think and you know, like if any of this ends, like those are who we owe it to for pushing back. But yeah, Newsom, his whole rise has been funded by these California dynasty families who have specifically selected him and groomed him. And his dad, I think, went to high school with one of the Gettys. So he was always close with them. And then the Fisher family paid for a lot of his early career, and also
he married into the Pelosi family, didn't he? Or wasn't he like by marriage? I think he's by marriage related to Pelosi somehow. Like,
that's not surprising.
Yeah, I'll look it up, but go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you know, a couple other California dynasties, and he was, I think, like a restaurant and wine guy, right? Before he became a politician.
Can't you tell? Look at him.
Yeah. And yeah, I remember when he ran for mayor of San Francisco, and I think they also actually had to do a runoff with the Green Party candidate because he wasn't super popular.
No, he's not at all.
Yeah, and then he ended up winning. I was young, I don't remember, but he did end up winning. So if I got that wrong, sorry, but he did end up becoming mayor. So like a lot of the worst California politicians somehow go to San Francisco in the Bay Area. Yeah, I think he's feeling some of the pressure, some of the heat, which is a good thing. I think that there's definitely an element, like there's been an element the entire time where people who have money don't think that the rules apply to them, and this for the very wealthy, and then also for, you know, the upper middle class, and think the rules are basically for other people, for people in flyover states, and for the poor. And so I think, I'm not sure like what you know the message is, but I think a lot of the dynamic has been even for the most true believers and stuff, people break the rules themselves or think that it's not really for them.
I get yelled at, like, because when we're out in construction, I'm outside by myself, standing off, like I work like solo a lot of times, like by myself. I got my mask like down here. And if somebody comes to talk to me, I put it on, talk to them. No big deal, right? I've had somebody roll down their car window, tell me come over, break within 6 feet. They're not wearing a mask. Tell me you need to wear a mask. I've had that. We've had a lot of coworkers do that. And I'm like, first off, where's yours? Second off, like, what is the concept of this? I'm by myself. Like, does it not apply? And it's to me, it's like that guy is wearing a vest, a dirty, you know, road tarred up vest. He's probably sick, you know, or like he's like, I don't want to get infected with whatever that guy has. But if they see this guy pull out in his Maserati or his Tesla and stuff, they're like, he doesn't have COVID. You know, like
you get COVID from that.
And
I'm telling you.
Oh, sorry. By the way, Pelosi is something like an aunt by marriage to Gavin Newsom. Nancy Pelosi's brother-in-law was Gavin Newsom's uncle. Look, it's a loose relation, but I mean,
club.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like it's why.
But people don't realize how much narrative around disease and contagion often has this like class component. And I saw this story, a lot of people probably saw it. There was this teacher in Oregon who was talking about going back even after being vaccinated. And she said something like, it just feels icky. And this is sort of very much in line with the type of like classist language that you don't want teachers who are around kids to use, you know, like to call like being around a population icky is not great. And then on top of that, I mean, like fear of certain diseases, like I think typhus and like other things in, you know, Nazi Germany played this really big role in a lot of the sort of policies that happened in the medicalized policies and endorsement of like the scientific and medical community for certain policies and facilitation. So there's this really long history of it being both a class issue and also a way in which certain people are like discriminated against and persecuted.
Sure.
And also in the US, like we have a really long history of eugenics, and that's not necessarily for doesn't necessarily relate to communicable disease, but more to hereditary things. But I think it's really scary how a lot of that history is lost, and how we're sort of seeing a resurgence of certain language and ways of talking about other people that's just extremely troubling and dehumanizing.
Beautiful point.
In one city, it's never the, like, we are taught about eugenics like through Nazi Germany, right? Well, most of the time, like that's the way you hear about it, but it's never like, maybe they used like pretty grim terms and stuff, but most of the time when something bad's happening, it doesn't have bad terms used at the time when you're being about it, right? And so like what I saw one thing, and I don't remember the city, but it was like a verified article. It was like Guardian or Atlantic or something. They were putting like DNR tags. Si, you remember I sent that to you? They were putting DNR tags on like certain people for COVID and stuff. It's like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like this whole disease that
I have two historical points on that. Like California was the eugenics capital of the world.
That's right. Number one, USA. USA.
And Oregon wasn't far behind. Like literally, like a lot of the people that came out to these states were like, not like anti-slavery because they loved black people, but specifically because they hated black people and they didn't want to be around them at all. Like that's why Oregon exists, kind of. And California has a bunch of weird shit with that. And Hitler was inspired by American eugenics policies. That's what inspired his Nazi Germany whole shtick. So it's like, fuck, like, you know,
we're honored as a nation.
Exactly. Yeah, you're welcome, bro. You're welcome.
No, thank you for bringing that up, because
stop copying.
It's like a hidden history of California is that before World War II, I think a third or something of all of the sterilizations in the US happened in California.
Damn.
And all of our state laws, it was codified in state law. And then in the Nuremberg trials, some of the Nazi scientists and officials like brought it up, like, well, these are the California laws, it's the same, in their defense. And they had been in communication with eugenicists in California for a very long time.
Whoa.
And that's why like the California like blonde hair surfer stereotype matches the master race, blonde hair, blue eye, tall thing.
Damn.
Like Nordic race stereotype is because they got it from the California eugenicists.
Holy
shit. So Pizza
Wow.
My Heart, oh man, Pizza My
Beach
Heart
Boys.
is like, Jesus, Capitola, nuke it. That's crazy.
That
so
shit was wild.
All right, well, okay, that's, I think I just wanted to get one more thing, one more question for Alex here. You've been pretty much spot on. Now him and I were just talking about it. You never have to thread when you post, which I think is crazy. Like you don't thread ever, like when you tweet, right? Like you just kind of just say it all in one paragraph, and it goes and you summarize it really well. And your predictions have been like pretty spot on. So I need one more. Do you think at any point in the year 2021 we go back to in-person school in California?
I don't know, because I guess it's just on a personal note, there's just been so many times where I've gotten my hopes up to go back to in-person school. So now I try to just like emotionally separate from it. So I don't know. My prediction would be, okay, well, like in Orange County, they have schools open. Some places they have schools open. Okay. So my prediction would be that from what I hear is that we would do potentially a lot of hybrid models in the fall, and maybe some small groups and like volunteering in the spring, but it really depends on the city and the district. So right. I think overall, you'll probably see the more affluent an area is, the more likely it will be to move into full reopening.
Yeah.
And the more large the percent of a district or a city is low income, the slower it will be.
Interesting. And I
Hilarious.
guess to that, would you say, because I remember asking you this in a DM once, but like do you think this is a move because, like you said, the lower income would probably take longer, right? I think there's a lot of things where they can go, oh, marginalized students, we can't put them at risk. I could see that it being packaged that way. Do you think that this could be a way to maybe kind of like defund some of these schools? Maybe not defund, but reduce funding. I guess I don't know if that's how I want to say that, but like kind of these schools are already like underfunded, a lot of them, right? Like a lot of places, like you hear places in Baltimore where they can't even get like central like heating going on and stuff like that. Do you think that's a way to be like, dude, we were tired of sending the school money, like let's just, have them learn at home?
I think that I mean there was an article that said there's I think something like 3 million kids in the US had just unenrolled from basically unenrolled from, not necessarily unenrolled, basically fallen off the grid in schools. So the schools were looking for them and they just couldn't find them. Like those kids just stopped attending. And the way schools are funded is that you get a certain amount of money per student in the district. So the fewer students you have, the less money you get. And so that means that you're going to have several districts that are facing budget crises for many years. So I think as kids leave because of the lack, it's not online learning is not sustainable for them. They might have to leave to like work for DoorDash to supplement family income. Or just if you already struggle in school, the thing that's good about school is you get to see other kids and like you have a community. The thing that's good about school is not necessarily being on the computer doing schoolwork, right? So I think that a lot of struggling kids will probably drop out who are older, and then also a lot of kids whose families are just like homeless, because homelessness is increasing and it's going to be even worse when eviction moratoriums run out. And there's a ton of like back rent and fees that people owe. That's just going to be a huge explosion in terms of housing. I mean, an implosion, not more housing, but less housing. And then, so I think, homeless kids will probably, but basically like as enrollment for public schools declines, funding for public schools declines. So in that way, that's where you might see a lot of resources disappear.
Yeah.
And then as funding declines, the schools get worse.
Right.
And as the schools get worse, there's more and more reason to close the schools, because we have like a testing system that's designed to close schools, because it's standardized. It identifies failing schools and then uses that as a reason to close them.
Yeah, that's like we're not going to fire you. We're just going to make you quit, like kind of thing. Yeah, I see what you mean. Definitely. And you said that's interesting because it's almost like there's always that school to prison pipeline you hear about, but like I think in California, especially, you're going to see like school to gig economy pipeline big time, Right. And I was wondering if you actually saw this. Sorry, I know I said that was the last question, but I meant to show this to you. But did you see this San Francisco Chronicle article about Prop 22? Now Instacart, Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash, they paid so much money to get Prop 22 passed. Now they have to raise prices, right? Which was what they said the reason for Prop 22 was because if their workers became employees rather than gig economy workers, it would raise prices. So I don't know if you saw that, but it's insane, like just wild. And that was the libertarian argument. It's like, well, families won't be able to afford to get their groceries delivered. And it's like, that's the people that are like constantly getting them delivered. Yeah. Money's not a thing. Like I'm sorry. Like it just never was. Like people don't pay like that much money to have their groceries delivered. But I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I mean, the whole thing with Prop 22 is really unfortunate, because obviously in California whenever a prop passes, then we're still dealing with the ramifications for like decades afterwards. So
This is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
I think that the expansion of the gig economy is something that everyone should be really concerned about, because for certain things like Uber, also, it's not just about the bad working conditions now. Eventually, if they can have technology that replaces people, they will use that to replace people. So the labor pool of like the Uber drivers is designed to be temporary in a lot of ways. So it's not just that you're on contract so we can fire you whenever we want now, but in the future, when you're no longer necessary, we might also just
once we automate transportation for most of the people you drive around, right? The rich kind of Silicon Valley tech worker that you drive around all the time. Once we automate transportation, I'm not for everybody, because I don't think that's going to happen for a long time, to automate it for like people that drive 93 Camrys right now. But the people that do that are going to be like, well, I have this self-driving Tesla, I have this self-driving this and that. Then I'm sorry, there is no gig. There's no way to build off that, because again, you're nothing. I have been an at-will contract worker. You're nothing.
Yeah.
And that's super interesting. I didn't even think about it like that. It's that's the thing. Like San Francisco Chronicle, I didn't even realize it. I saw somebody post it after the fact in the replies of that article. I didn't realize the San Francisco Chronicle had an article that said, "Do not disrupt the gig economy. Vote yes on 22."
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. No. Watch. I'll pull it up.
Newspapers are the
that's
worst.
crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. How did I miss that? I just was okay. Here we go. Yeah. It's insane. Like they don't even hide it. Like they didn't even dress it up or anything. Like it's an editorial, but don't stifle the gig economy. Vote yes on Prop 22. I don't know what it says. There's no way. Yeah, that's nuts. Like it's crazy.
Well, that's all the news, LA and San Francisco Chronicles, all that stuff. They always carry water for all the shitty props. Like it's hilarious how they just put that shit out there.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly just like the rate gets. It's basically wow, of course. Wow, they made me pay for that one. Wow, they made me pay for the article about that. That's God. All the COVID articles are free, by the way. But no, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, Alex, I could talk to you all day. It's good. You've been on twice. There is a rule that you have to come on for a third time if you come on twice.
I'll be happy to come on.
Okay, it's the rules are rules. I didn't make them, but
I'm sure things will be much better by then.
It's all on the way up.
Yeah, it's great. So my computer's dying, so I have to end it. But Alex, where can everybody find you? Where can they find your work? And what do you got going on?
You can find my 2 articles on the Bellows. One is called The Virtual Education's Shock Doctrine, and the other one is The Great COVID Class War. Mm-hmm. And stay tuned for maybe more articles. Who knows?
Hopefully.
And then you can find me on Twitter at Galaxy Brain.
And you got to spell Galaxy with like Alex in there.
With Alex, yeah.
And then Brain is BRANE. It'll be, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it right below her face on here. So thanks again, Alex. I appreciate you coming by. You're our first guest, and it's your second time, first recurring guest ever.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. All right, everybody, take care. I'm at Glenn Rockney. He's at Crypto Size. Is at Rare Candy Pod 1. All right, guys.
Cheers.